everybody, and welcome to an extremely special board game video. The reason that this particular video is very special for me is it represents the first top 10 video that I have ever done. Up until this point, they have only been top 5s, primarily because my collection has been rather sparse. But now, not only do I have a lot more board games, I've also picked a sort of category that really can be represented by a great many games. The particular category is unique themes. Throughout board gaming, there are many mechanics that are shared, be it deck building, dice rolling, etc., etc. You can name many different ones. But the themes are what really can set games apart. You can have different themes that use the same mechanics, and that makes one of them decidedly better than the other. So what do I mean for this particular category in this video? I mean, essentially games that make me laugh. That's really what I like to see in a lot of games. Or something that I see a game and it just sort of makes me scratch my head and be like, really? They made a game where you get to do that? That's awesome! That type of thing. So that's really where I'm going to be going with this. Now, thankfully, I do have plenty of games that fit this category because those are the types of games I really enjoy playing and like to buy, frankly. So to get us started, I've actually got a couple of honorable mentions. My first honorable mention is one that I really haven't talked about as far as I can remember. It's actually a remake from an old game from, I believe, the 60s or the 70s, and it is Survive. Originally, this game was made by Milton Bradley, and it was actually geared towards kids, which is absolutely shocking. The whole point of this game is that you're trying to escape an island that's gradually sinking underwater. And you have little tokens that represent different numbers of people and trying to get them to safety. The problem is you've got whales, you've got sharks, and you've got dragons, all of which want to make you their lunch. So it becomes a very unique game, not necessarily in that it's almost survival horror, but in a really weird, funny kind of way. But for God's sakes, you're being chased by a sea monster, and it's a dragon, and it's designed for little kids. Or at least it originally was. This one, not as much, but literally the original one made by Milton Bradley, the same guys who make Monopoly. So it's just a really crazy, strange way to sort of relieve a bunch of stress, because you get to make all your friends drown, which isn't really very nice, but still, it works. And the reason that it's only an honorable mention is because you do have several other games that use a similar theme, like Forbidden Island and things like that. But I think this game just really does it well, because it's just so strange, and it's not something that you would expect to see in a board game. It doesn't really turn much of anything on its head, but it's just odd that the whole point is just to get off the island, so to speak. I guess Atlantis Rising, I believe it is, or just Atlantis, something like that, is another game that's very similar to this. But either way, it does definitely earn a spot as an honorable mention. So for all of those reasons, that is why Survive is one of my honorable mentions. My second honorable mention, and just rounding out the two that I've got, is a game that I've talked about quite a bit, not a whole lot, but a decent amount. It is Cash and Guns. This is a really fun and ridiculously unique game. I have never seen any game that uses mechanics the way that this does. So I know I mentioned at the very beginning that I really want to look at theme rather than mechanics, but in this case, the mechanic is really part of the theme. The whole point is that you're a group of bank robbers, and in order to split the loot, you start pointing foam guns at each other to see who gets to keep the money. It's great, it's crazy, and it's a lot of fun after you've been doing things that kids shouldn't do. But for this particular game, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I've talked about it earlier, and it's a really fast game, it's really easy to learn, and it's just a crazy amount of fun. And what more can you ask for in a game, much less one that's really quirky and crazy and very unique in its own right? So because of all those reasons, Cash and Guns is one of my honorable mentions. Starting off my list at number 10, I've got a game that I've talked about a couple times, not too much though, and it is King of Tokyo. This particular game is really, really fun. It's obviously very quirky and very unique. The reason that this particular one is unique is simply because you're a monster and you're attacking Tokyo. Okay, cool, great, sign me up, fun. One of the great things about this is it takes a really basic mechanic, in this case dice rolling, and it just puts a theme around it that is so fun, and it's not even necessarily completely out there because there are movies, you know, Godzilla and all those, where certainly giant monsters come in and ravage various cities. In this case, you are going to the famous Godzilla city of Tokyo. And it's great, it's really fun, it's really crazy. There's a bunch of expansions for it, which power up your various monsters in different ways to make them do lots of other crazy things even better. I personally don't have any of the expansions because I find just the base game to be really, really fun. But overall, just the theme itself is just a very unique thing. You don't really see a lot of what can only really be described as mindless destruction in a board game, and that's really all that this is. The whole point is that you're going in and randomly destroying Tokyo. So that is why King of Tokyo is my number 10. At number 9, I've got a game whose mechanics has been applied to many, many different themes over the time, but whose essential, like, core gameplay has not changed at all. The game that I have, or the version I have, is Monty Python Fluxx. The particular game is just Fluxx in general. The whole point for the game is very, very simple. It starts off as draw a card, play a card. That's it. But then you've got all sorts of crazy stuff that changes everything about the way that the game works. Draw more cards, play more cards. You have to do a song and dance. You have to sing a unique song. It's just ridiculous. It's the weirdest stuff that you can imagine. I personally am a huge fan of Monty Python, and for this particular game, obviously, I don't know how well you can see the picture, but the vast majority of this particular variation on Fluxx is based off of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which is probably their most famous work, if certainly one of the most famous, if not the most famous. But that being said, if you haven't seen it, obviously you won't get a lot of the jokes, but thematically, it's just a really fun, quirky, crazy game. I've played a couple different versions of Fluxx, and it's all the same kind of stuff. You've got Fluxx Pirates, you've got Fluxx Sci-Fi, you've got Fluxx this, that, the other, Fluxx and everything. So it's a really fun theme that just carries over to a lot of, I guess you could say different genres, but obviously in this case it's a very specific intellectual property, for lack of a better term. But either way, it's a lot of fun, and it's definitely a unique style of play. That being said, you know, you're playing it for however long. It's a relatively quick game, depending on how lucky you get with the cards, actually. And based on solely that, just how lucky you end up getting, it can be very, very short, or it can be relatively long, but either way, you're going to have a really, really fun time. And it doesn't matter how many people are playing either, which makes it wonderful in that sense as well. So for all of those reasons, that's why Monty Python Fluxx, and just Fluxx in general, is my number 8. At number 8, I've got a game that's very, very similar to an extremely popular party game, but one that really speaks very well to me personally because of what I do for a living. The game is Mad Science University, or Mad Scientist University, rather. This particular game is very, very similar to Apples to Apples. The whole point is that you have the one person, the TA in this case, who puts out a card that has a specific goal on it. And then the idea is that everybody puts down the cards that make the most sense. And you can say, you know, You want to take over the world with lawn gnomes, for example, is one of the examples on the back of the box. This particular game was one that I had never heard of until I actually saw it browsing on Amazon, and I was just like, wow, look, it's a tiny game, it's really cheap, I want to play it, it sounds awesome. I've only played it a couple times, but it's absolutely a blast, especially for like-minded people like me who really enjoy science and this kind of thing. We can just come up with some of the weirdest explanations possible, and I think that is really the core of the game that really makes it a very unique thing. Like in Apples to Apples, you can defend whatever your choice is, or somebody else's, or whatever it happens to be, but part of the idea is that you have to have a fun story behind what you're going to do. You can't just say that you're going to take over the world with lawn gnomes. You have to really explain. How are you going to take over the world with lawn gnomes? Are they going to be genetically engineered lawn gnomes that come to life? Are they going to be mechanical lawn gnomes that can shoot lasers and missiles so you can enslave humanity? How are you going to do it? I think it makes it a lot more fun, and another really, really great party game. You got a lot of people, and it just becomes crazy, really fun. It's a really great game. It's a really awesome theme, and that's why Mad Scientist University is my number 8. At number 7, I've got a trading game that's a really unique theme in that it's mostly just about what you're playing with. The game itself is Bohnanza. And when I used to be playing this when I was an undergraduate, we would actually just refer to this as the bean game. The reason it was called the bean game is because the whole point, the whole premise, the entire theme is based around planting and harvesting beans, which are represented by individual cards. You just plant the beans, and then when you have enough of them, you get them up, and the winner is based on victory points. Very, very simple, but it just kind of makes you think, I'm planting beans. Really? Beans. Seriously. And it's just not something that anybody would really think could become a board or a card game, technically in this case. But it's just really, really fun, really quirky, and just it's really fun because it takes a lot of the trading mechanics that you see in a lot of games, card trading mechanics, that is, obviously, and it really takes them to a new level with a completely ridiculous theme. But just because something is so ridiculous doesn't mean that it's not fun by any means. It's actually really great. It makes it really better, in my opinion, because it makes you want to keep playing it and come back for more later on, simply because it is so weird and it makes no sense. The artwork is really good. It just makes everything that much crazier. Pretty much all of the beans have some kind of a pun related to them, and we all know that puns is the highest form of comedy. But even so, I think that it's really good. It's a lot of fun. It's a pretty cheap game too, which makes it really nice. And also you can play it with a lot of people. It's great as a party game, just like several of the other ones I've already talked about. So for all of those reasons, Bohnanza is my number 7. At number 6, I've got a game that is from a famously quirky design team and a even more famously quirky firm, and it is Ninja Burger from Steve Jackson Games. So whenever you hear quirky, crazy, unique in the context of board games, you really cannot go wrong with Steve Jackson. They make some of the weirdest games possible, and I guarantee you're going to see at least one more coming up here. For this particular one, though, Ninja Burger, it's really, really crazy. The whole point is that you essentially work at a fast food restaurant as a ninja and have to deliver the food wherever, whenever, and however required. It's just a ridiculous thought, because you can think of even video games like Tapper, the root beer tapper, as it was in the US, where you're serving drinks. But in this case, I mean, you're serving food as a ninja. And it's obviously not the first thing that anybody would possibly think of for it, but it's just so much fun. It is such a crazy, weird idea that made no sense in anybody's mind except probably Steve Jackson in this case, but it is just so cool. Just like several of the other games from Steve Jackson games, you get crazy items that help you out in various ways. You use pretty simple dice rolling mechanics to figure out what works and what doesn't. But one of the really nice things is that you actually have individual ninjas that you're playing as. So different ninjas have different skill sets. You have some that are better at stealth. You have some that are better at customer service, which is one of the skills that you have. All of this kind of stuff. And it's just really cool because it feels like you're a delivery person with a katana and some shurikens. It's just really cool and really fun and just a little bit strange. But that's why it's perfect for this particular list and why Ninja Burger is my number 6. At number 5, I have a game that I've talked about a couple of times that's really, really fun, but decidedly very strange. The game is Food Fight. And this is one of the games that is filled with plenty of puns that are actually pretty good in this case. The name of the game itself, Food Fight, is in itself a pun. Normally you would think, we're throwing food at each other. No, literally the food is fighting itself. So for example, you can have General Hamburger come and help you out, or is it General Cheeseburger? I don't remember. Either way. But it's just really crazy like that, where you actually have military ranks to the different foods for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And those are actually the 3 rounds of combat, so to speak, where you have the breakfast round, the lunch round, and the dinner round. And different foodstuffs do better or worse depending on what the meal is. So for example, eggs and bacon do better in breakfast than they do dinner, which makes perfect sense. But it's really, really fun, and it is a completely crazy, strange game. I had never ever heard of it until I found it at my local store. I just saw it on a shelf. I was like, that looks like just about the weirdest game I have ever seen in my life, and I have to have it. Just because it looks so weird. And I read the back of the box and I was just like, wow, this is going to be so much fun. It is just the strangest, greatest, most fun that I've had with many, many different games. That being said, obviously it's not a perfect game, but it is really fun. There are some mechanics that I don't think work really well, like the way that the tiebreakers work, and not only that, but once your soldiers are together for each individual battle, you actually have to shuffle them together. They're all cards. And the problem is, if they come out in specific orders, they do better than they do otherwise. So the shuffling mechanic really isn't that fun for me. But other than that, it's a really crazy fun game in general, and certainly a theme that you will never ever see in any other type of game. But I think that it works with this particular one, and that's why Food Fight is my number 5. At number 4, I've got a really fun game that comes in a huge box. And in this particular case, it is Galaxy Trucker. This is a really, really unique, crazy, quirky game for several reasons. First and most importantly is just the mechanic that you're using to actually build your truck. There's literally just a giant pile of parts in the middle of the table, and everybody's just grabbing and snatching and going and going and going to try to get all of the parts to put together their spaceship, or their truck in this case, be it cargo holds or engines, guns, shields, all those kinds of things, and you're just trying to make them fit right and all this kind of stuff. It's just crazy. It's ridiculous. But the fact that it's just a wonderful, weird theme. The whole point is that you're building what is, for lack of a better term, a clunker that's going to fly through space to deliver a bunch of cargo, is just wonderfully strange and nonsensical. And I love it. It's just so great that it's so weird. And you never see anything like this. I mean, certainly you see games where you're collecting cargo and delivering it. You see games where you have to build things up from the ground up. You get upgrades, that kind of thing. But you're not just randomly snatch and grabbing and this kind of stuff. It's just way out there in terms of everything. This particular one, the reason it's so big is because this is the anniversary edition. So it has, I think, 2 of the expansions. Which added more just general craziness of all different sorts. But it's a lot of fun, very, very fun theme, very unique, obviously, but it is one of the games where if you're not used to really trying to strategize and really figure out what you're doing, how you're going to do it, that kind of stuff, it can be really difficult to get into. It's one of the games that recommends that you play on for lack of a better term, a lower difficulty before you really jump into the full game. It gives you like some of the base rules, and then you can go ahead and use the full rules, which is really good, and it does help out a lot with this particular one. But for the purposes of a crazy theme, there's certainly ways that you could do a lot worse than Galaxy Trucker, and that's why this particular one is my number 4. At number 3, I've got a great game that really takes the whole premise of adventuring and turns it upside down on its head. The game is Dungeon Lords. This is a really, really fun, really crazy game, and the reason I like it so much is not only just the theme in general, but the way that the instructions and everything else really puts you inside of the theme. It really gets you in the head of what you're trying to do. The whole point is that you're basically applying for a permit to be a bad guy, and whoever ends up winning, there are 4 players, or you can have 2 and 2 dummies, or 3 and 1 dummy, whatever it is. Whoever ends up winning gets their permit to be an official bad guy. The whole idea is that you are building this big fancy dungeon, you're hiring monsters, you're building traps, you're doing this, that, and the other, and then these freaking adventurers come along and they start destroying all your stuff. It's not cool. It's really not cool. And I just think it's so hilarious because anytime you see these big adventuring things, you see a lot of RPGs, Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, even a lot of video games of the same type, you know, if you think of like Skyrim and things like that. The whole point is that you're playing as the good guy and going in and messing up the stuff of the bad guys. Whereas with this, it's the exact opposite. You are that bad guy, and you know those adventurers are coming along, so you got to do all that you can to prep yourself and make sure that they don't get far into your lair, because you're just trying to build a really nice thing for all of your monsters and all your creatures and stuff. It's really great. It's wonderful. It's wonderfully thematic, and I love the way that the instructions are written. This is another example of one of the games that is ridiculously complicated from the get-go. If you try playing with the full rules, you will probably fail. Well, not necessarily fail, but I can pretty much guarantee you're going to forget something. And the reason being, there's just so much to try to remember. So it's another game that sort of eases you in and says, you know, play with the basic rules first, and then gradually add in the rest of the rules so that you can then play with the full set. But that being said, it's really, really awesome the way that the instructions are written out, because you've got your little helpers who are always putting in like the little quibs in the in like the speech bubbles and that kind of stuff, and it just makes the whole thing really funny and really wonderfully humorous, and like I said, really puts you into the theme itself. So for all of those reasons, Dungeon Lords, and realistically its companion, Dungeon Pets, which I unfortunately don't have, but in that case it's actually about the goblins, these little dudes, oops, wrong side, these little dudes, raising up all the monsters that you're going to be eventually sending after the adventurers, but particularly Dungeon Lords is my number 3. 2, I have a wonderfully quirky game that's really fun to play, quick to set up, and just a blast to do all throughout. The game is Smash Up. This game is so much fun, and the name pretty much tells you all that you need to know. Smash Up. What are you doing? You're taking multiple things and smashing them together. In this particular case, what you're doing is you're taking, I believe it's a total of 8 starting factions, and the idea is that each player picks 2 of them. And once you have your 2 factions, then you mash them together. You mix the cards up, and it's similar to something like Dominion, where you've got the card building concept. But in this case, you're not picking up new cards as you go. Whatever you start with is what you keep. But the idea is that you've got these really random weird things. You've got pirates, you've got zombies, you've got ninjas, you've got robots, you've got like the fairy type people like gnomes and all that kind of stuff. You've got aliens. See, I'm just looking at the back of the box and seeing what we all got. Alright, lots of crazy weird stuff. And the whole point, again, is that you're taking 2 of them and just mashing them together. Would you like some robot zombies? Yes, please! Give me robot zombies! And then you're playing as robot zombies. It's a lot of fun and really crazy. That being said, just like with Dungeon Lords, which I mentioned just a little while ago, the instructions are actually a pleasure to read, which is so rare with a lot of board games. But Smash Up does it so well. They have a lot of really weird quips and quirks and all sorts of craziness within just the instructions for the game itself. And in addition, there are actually... I know there's at least 2, there might be 3 expansions for Smash Up. You've got the power level 9,000, or up to 9,000, whatever it is, and then you've also got the obligatory Cthulhu expansion for it, which is just, I mean, it's the board game industry essentially laughing at itself. Similar, not entirely similar to Dungeon Lords, but relatively similar to Dungeon Lords, where it's just taking a lot of the concepts built up in years and years of board and card games and just making them completely crazy, weird, off the wall. That being said, one of my favorite reasons for playing this game is not only that it's just crazy fun, but also it's very fast to play. The whole point is that you just need to put your monsters down, or whatever it happens to be, your characters down on bases, and then once you have the obligatory number of people on the base, then whoever gets it, gets it. Then you get some rewards and all this kind of stuff, right? And you're essentially just playing for victory points. But it's so much more than that, because the theme makes it an absolute delight to just be getting something that's been done, and that one thing being the victory points. It's just wonderful and great and so much fun and so crazy. And that's why Smash Up is my number 2. At number 1, I've got the game that pretty much understandably really defines what a crazy, unique board or card game really is. Munchkin. This started an entire industry almost. Particularly Munchkin for me, I've got a lot of the expansions. I believe now we're up to 8 of the original Munchkin games, and then we've also got the Super Munchkin 2 as well. We've got zombies, we've got the what else? The vampire ones, the goth. What else? We got the sci-fi one, the Star Munchkin. We've got Munchkin Cthulhu. We've got Munchkin Foo. We've got, geez, what else? All sorts of them. See, I don't even remember. Incidentally, in my box, I've got all of my instruction booklets that I've gotten over the years. Okay, from all the various Munchkins that I have at some point purchased. Very exciting, right? Lots of fun, and this is one of the games, similarly to Dungeon Lords, that really takes the entire concept of what adventuring is and role-playing is and all these kinds of things, and in this case it doesn't really turn it on its head like Dungeon Lords does, but what this does is it just mocks the whole thing incessantly. If you have ever played D&D or Pathfinder or anything like that, then you would appreciate pretty much all of the jokes in this. It's so great, and they're different items that can only be used by certain things. For example, just right here on the top, you can see the gnome on a stepladder. The thing is that you can only use the stepladder if you're a gnome because you're short. And it's just stupid stuff like that. You've got things where you can cheat. You've got literally the cheat cards that let you do things you otherwise wouldn't be able to. The whole idea behind Munchkin is it comes from the term Munchkin, where you would have people playing D&D or Pathfinder and the paper role-playing games, and they would be what you call min-maxers. The idea is that you minimize penalties to your character and you maximize the benefits. Certainly that seems relatively obvious to a lot of people, but if you're really trying to role-play a character and really get into what they are, then you might be taking things that aren't necessarily a perfect complement to what you already have, simply so that you can reinforce what your character is and their background and things like that. That being said, Munchkin, again, just makes fun of every single part of that. And it's great. One of the things that I'm very unfortunate to not have is Munchkin Quest, the actual board game version of this, which is a tile exploration game. And in that, you've got the just individual rooms that have different effects depending on what you are and what you do and all that kind of stuff. Like mini games, Munchkin is rife with puns, which is, in this case, again, not a bad thing because they do a good job with it. If you do a good job with having puns or whatever it happens to be, that's great, that's wonderful, go right ahead and do it. And just like several other of the games that I mentioned, the instructions are really fun to read because it's just, you can get the amount of crazy that is in these games just by reading how you play it. It's wonderful, it's so much fun, and it's such a unique experience. Like I said, practically started the entire Quirky games industry on its own. And for all of those reasons, Munchkin and all of its predecessors, and, well, not its predecessors, but all of its successors, are my collective number one. So that's it for me, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed this very special board gaming episode that I made with my first top 10 list. And with that... So that's it for me, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed this very special top 10 board gaming list from me. With that, I would like to say thank you very much for watching. Again, I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you liked the top 10 aspect. I'm hoping to do more of those in the future, but it will have to be these more general themes of, just unique games, crazy games, weird things, that kind of stuff. But regardless, again, hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.